All right. So, what is up, guys? We are live with Giannetti, aka Skeletor, the Ultimate Fighter standout. He actually just got out of training right now. I'll go ahead and let him introduce himself.
What's going on, guys? Just got fresh out of training, hopped out the shower, and here with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for being on. I'll be completely honest with you. I remember watching you years ago on The Ultimate Fighter. Me and my fiance, big fans. We were literally rooting for you. My homie that comes over every fight night, he'd come over every night for Ultimate Fighter. And from, I think, episode 1 or 2, you were probably our favorite on that season. And yeah, man, just longtime fan.
Thank you. That means a lot. It's so funny because, I've been fighting since I was 18, fresh out of high school. So, the Ultimate Fighter was already 5 years into my career. So it's always so funny how, people always say, longtime fan. And to me, it's already been almost 4 or 5 years since Tough. So it's just funny how long I've been fighting, and I'm only 27.
It's crazy. It's honestly crazy how young you are and how much you've already done in your career. So, I mean, just go ahead and jumping right into questions. I have a couple written down, and then I'm probably just going to kind of freestyle, go off the cusp. So the first thing is just kind of firing off of The Ultimate Fighter. What has been the best thing to come from you being on the show?
So I've got two, and I think they're tied for first. One is I fully understand what type of lifestyle I need to live now. And, people always ask and always wonder what it's like for guys on Tough because, you don't see your friends, you don't see your family, and they're like, mentally that's got to be tough. And of course it is. I miss my girlfriend, I miss my dogs, my dad, my friends, everybody. But it's one of those things when I left, everybody knew why I left. They knew what I was going to do, what I'm trying to accomplish. And being in that house and just living and breathing, fighting and training was just such an eye-opener. Not that I didn't train hard before the show, but just seeing how much more I had to dedicate myself. And ever since, I've tried to make that Ultimate Fighter lifestyle my lifestyle. I wake up, I train. I go to eat lunch, and I rest to get ready to train again. Granted, you throw work in the mix and some regular life priorities, but I try to stay as close to that as possible because just as much as it's all perspective. Some people say it's terrible. I think it's a blessing in disguise. People say, would you go back on Tough? I'd love to. It was heaven. No responsibilities, not worrying about bills for once, just focus on fighting and get the job done. And then tied with that, I would say the connections I made at the show, my friends and my coaches, being able to go to a place like American Kickboxing Academy and Daniel Cormier's Wrestling Academy, a kid from a small town in Massachusetts just outside of Boston, I never thought that would be a thing.
I think those are definitely two amazing things to come out of the show. I'm from a small town in Louisiana. I was born in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, mostly grew up in Louisiana, somehow found my way out in California, and I randomly decided to start training for fun and realized that AKA was like a 35 minute drive for me. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll drive over there and see what that's like. And I think after I was there for 2 weeks, I was walking out after a Muay Thai class with Coach Tomas Dion, and DC was literally scanning the little key cards. And I was like, don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. Don't fanboy out. And I literally walked outside. I took maybe 3 steps out the door, and I was like, fuck it, I'm going to be that guy. I turned around and I was like, DC, would it be cool if I took a picture with you, man? And he was so amazingly nice. He's like, yeah, man, it'd be super cool if you took a picture with me. Walked out from around the counter, put his arm around me. And I told him, I was like, dude, you're a big inspiration for me. I'm from Louisiana. I started training here because I found out that you trained here and, it wasn't that far of a drive. And he's like, hey, tell Joanna at the front desk, man, she never gives me any respect. Just a totally normal dude, right? And I know you know that. And I think that's one of the things that people that have never trained don't realize about mixed martial artists is they're normal people. Once that cage door locks, you're a terrifying human being. But outside of the cage, you're probably one of the most gentle people in the world, I'd assume, right?
Yeah, for sure. And this is why some people love me and some people hate me. Is if I like you, I like you. We're cool. If I don't like you, you're going to know I don't like you. I'm not going to start a problem with you, but I'm going to let it be known. We're not going to pretend. I don't like you. You don't like me. Let's keep it that way,
I'm a big fan of that, personally.
But when people see me that don't like me, hey, man, how's it going? I'm like, nope, Just keep it cordial. Give me that like, what's up nod. Keep it moving. I don't want to sit here and have that awkward conversation with you. I don't know if it's something wrong with me. I'm not big on small talk. I'm a boring person. I don't have nothing to talk about. You know what I mean? But if I like you, or if I don't know you, if you're just coming to say hi, then yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be aggressive. It's funny because some people have like tweeted at me or like DM me on Instagram, and like, oh, I saw you at so and so. I wanted to say hi, but I didn't want to be rude. And I'm like, as long as you just say like, hey, I'm a big fan. What's up? Like, that's it. If you want to take a picture, cool. If you just want to say, hey, like, it's whatever, you know. I just tell people, I go, I'm socially awkward. So if you ever think I'm looking at you weird and you're like, oh, I just pissed him off, like, you didn't. I'm just awkward. Like, my girlfriend thinks it's friggin' hysterical.
You're like, I'm not making a face at you. That's just my face.
Yeah, like I'm just wicked awkward. Like, I'm not mad that you said hi. I'm just that awkward.
I love it, man. And yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely, I feel like that's almost a trend in mixed martial arts. You have a lot of like, it's 50-50, right? Like you have your Conor McGregors that are just extroverts out of the womb. Like I feel like that guy demanded a mic at day one. And then you have folks that like are like yourself where, you know, they're almost introverted extroverts. Like you do well when the mic's in front of you, but if it were up to you, you would probably just train, watch anime, play video games and fight. And that's it.
If it was up to me, I wouldn't even be on social media.
That's fair.
The only reason I got into it was because when I was an amateur, I knew I wanted to go pro. I knew I wanted to be a UFC fighter. And you know, when I was in high school, like Instagram started getting big and Facebook and all that stuff, and I was like, I started selling tickets on there. I just post, I have tickets. You want to come buy tickets. And I was like, this is a great way to advertise myself. And then it became like the norm to like, you know, advertise and do business on social media. So I just kept up with it. And now people are always like, you're so good at social media. I'm like, yeah, I friggin' hate it.
Yeah, I feel like social media is definitely a double-edged sword. I feel like when it was first introduced, it's like, oh, this is a really cool concept. And then it became just like almost a new playing field for bragging rights and toxicity.
Yeah.
So I definitely understand. It's definitely a double-edged sword. But, you know, for somebody like yourself that's a professional athlete, for you, it's a means of getting your name out, promoting yourself. When you've tried to fight 2, 3, 4 guys and none of them are willing to actually sign the dotted line, it's a means for you to actually post things and stay relevant when folks aren't willing to actually play their part. And I feel like that's almost a common issue for you. And a lot of people, like for lack of better words, that come out of really solid gyms, right? Like if people find out like, oh man, that's that standout from The Ultimate Fighter, or oh, that's that stud from AKA, I don't want to fight that guy.
Well, it's funny because I joked my last couple of fights with my coaches, and I was like, I feel like I should kind of like try to look like shit in these fights so I can keep getting more fights. And like, I know it sounds like a cocky thing to say because come fight night, that would never come out of my mouth. I'm way too nervous. But
Sure.
but leading up to the fight, my coaches are like, shut up and focus on winning. And I'm like, I am, but like, what good is winning if I don't get to fight again because nobody will fight me? Like, and so it's funny, like I joke about it all the time, and then come fight night, I'm just like, nah, screw everybody. I'm gonna come out there and kill this dude. I want to get in and out.
I definitely feel like that's the trend with you. Go in there, kill this guy, get out. Like, what was your old quote? Snatching necks and getting checks, or
Necks and cashing checks.
snatching necks and cashing checks, man. Like you have a 92% finish rate. I literally did the math earlier. It's like a 92.36% finish rate across your professional career. That's insane.
There's 2 reasons for that. There's one, I'm an MMA fan first, and I think that it's something that a lot of even the best guys in the sport lack. Like, they're phenomenal fighters, phenomenal athletes, but they're not fans of the sport. There's plenty of guys that don't really even watch MMA that are world champs or about to be world champs. I was a huge MMA fan before getting into it, and besides being a fan and knowing what people want to see, I've been to a few decisions, and whether I'm dominating or not, it's always exhausting. I'd rather be not tired and just get in and get out.
Absolutely. You don't get paid by the hour, right? You get paid by performance. It doesn't matter if you finish in 15 seconds or 15 minutes.
Exactly. I want to get in, get out, get my check. I want the fans to go crazy. And that's like my other thing, like with social media is, you know, before, like maybe pre-tough, you know, I used to talk a lot of shit on social media because I was running into the problem of not getting fights. So I was like, I guess I have to be an asshole. And a lot of people didn't like me for it. And then they'd come meet me and they'd be like, you're one of the nicest people I ever met. And I was like, yeah, I need to get a fight. So, like, I'm going to talk shit and make you hate me enough to whether you like me or not. Like, you might think that I'm too good and you don't want to fight me, but you're like, I really just want to punch that guy. Now you want to fight me. Now I get to fight. Yeah. And then it became one of those things, too, where, like, I wasn't putting on a show for social media, but, like, I feel like people, even now, aren't genuine enough on social media because it's so toxic. They just want to show, like, oh, this is when I win my fight. This is when I buy my new Rolex and all this shit. And I'm just very open of, like, you know, like, oh, I had a great week. I killed it. And then the next day I'll be like, oh, so-and-so just beat the hell out of me for 3 5-minute rounds. Like, I tell people all the time, like, at my gym here when I'm at home, real BTT in Taunton, like, more and more guys locally are coming here and they're getting their asses handed to them, and they'll come to me and be like, yo, these guys are good, like MMA fighters. And I'm like, yo, why do you think I'm here? Like, I didn't just come here and start being like, oh, this is the spot just to gas them up. I came here as a successful MMA fighter wanting to improve my jiu-jitsu and got manhandled by almost everybody in the gym. And I was like, I'm not nearly as good as I thought I was.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good sign. That's a good sign of, like, you found the right spot.
Exactly. And so now guys come in and they look at me and they're like, you were serious when you said everyone kicks your ass? I'm like, every day. And I come back.
Every day. Every day. And I come back so that way, maybe one day, maybe just one day, I'll beat them around.
Maybe I'll get tapped 5 times instead of 6. I'll take that.
I love it. I love it, man. So that actually brings me to my next question for you. In your opinion, what is the deciding factor? What makes a great coach or great gym?
I think there's a couple different answers. As far as a coach, and this is my opinion because one day I'd like to be a coach, so I'm also still kind of searching for that answer. You know, I watch guys like DC and guys like Cain Velasquez and Javier Mendez and Khabib. One thing that they all share is just like that family vibe. You know, like a big reason that we all got along with DC so fast on the show, and, you know, for the most part, like, I'll stay connected with him, is because, like, he kind of just feels like that uncle at the barbecue. Like, you haven't seen him in, like, 5 years, but you see him, and he's like, hey, what's up? He's like, how you been? How's the girl? How's college? Da-da-da-da. Like, that's DC. Like, he'll give you shit. Like, he'll bust your balls. Like, he'll keep it real with you. You know, and it's honesty. It's honesty and that family vibe. Khabib's the same way. Like, he'll mess with you, but, you know, at the end of the day, he's here for your best interest. Javier Mendez, Cain Velasquez, all the same thing. They can crack jokes with you and pick on you, but you know it's lighthearted, and at the end of the day, you know everything they're doing is to make you better, and you know that they genuinely care. So as a coach, I think those are the two big things. As far as the gym, it kind of rides the same answer. I think you need to keep the family vibes high and the ego low. Ego is the most toxic thing in a gym, and it can be, and I've explained this to people that don't think of it this way. I think of a thing, it's silent ego. Like, I've seen so many guys that are like, no, I don't care, that's whatever. And then, like, I can tell by the way they're grappling or sparring or rolling.
I was going to say, you can tell the next round you go with them after they tell you, like, oh, no, it's no big deal. But then you're like, dude, you're not going 50% all of a sudden. You just hit me with like an 80% hit, and you're trying to take my head off now. I thought you said it didn't matter. Yeah, I've been to those kind of gyms.
Yeah. When I first started, like my striking first started coming together, I would spar with guys that I've sparred for years. I took a year off sparring to improve my striking right before I went pro. And in that year, my striking evolved levels. And so when I went back to sparring, and I was, you know, I would still go super light. I've never been big on hard sparring. But, you know, I would catch some of these guys off guard and, like, catch them with kind of like a lead leg snap kick, almost like slapping them with my foot. Not super hard, but, you know, you get slapped, you get kind of pissed. And so, like,
it's almost like an embarrassing thing, especially if you have a big ego.
Exactly. So I would land it sometimes, and I'd be like, oh, my God, like, are you good? Like, I'm so sorry. Like, yeah, dude, it's fine. It's whatever. I'm like, oh, all right. And then they're drilling leg kicks. Yeah. And I'm like, is it all right? I'm like, because that was kind of hard.
It's like, you're saying one thing, but you're telling me another thing with your body right now, bro.
Yeah, I remember one of the funniest stories ever. I remember there was this kid at my old gym. He was getting ready for an MMA fight. He was 3 days out. He was a couple days from weigh-ins. And he wanted to spar. I was like, hey, I don't think it's a good idea. You're so close to a fight. And, you know, the guys that were helping him were like, no, it's fine, whatever. And he's an amateur. So I'm like, all right, I'll get some rounds with you. I guess against my own will, whatever. So we start sparring, and, like, he's an amateur. So I'm getting the better of him. Like I said, I don't spar hard, so I'm outpointing him. doing whatever. I'm backing him up to the wall. I'm throwing a couple knees to the body. Didn't drop him or anything. And we did like 3 rounds. And then we did a 4th round. And towards the end of the round, I pushed him up against the wall. And I was like being lazy at this point. And I like lazily grabbed his head. And I kneed him in the body. He was shelled up and just out of panic just did this. And he pushed me over because I was slow and lazy. And I was like, and I was on my ass. And I was like, whatever. So I stand back up. But there's a bunch of people watching. And everybody sees me fall and goes, ooh. And I see him like kind of feel himself. And I'm like, oh, shit. And so the round ends. And I'm like, good work, bro. And I was like picking him apart for 4 rounds completely. He didn't land anything. He just pushed me. And I was like, good for you. I was being lazy, whatever. And I was like, good rounds. I was like whatever. And he's like, what, you done? You tired? And I was like, no, I just don't think that we should keep going. Like, I just feel like somebody's going to get hurt. Like, this is bad. And he's like, what, you tired already? You don't want to go 5th round? And I'm like kind of looking around, and, you know, everybody's like, go again, go again. And I'm like, guys, like, you're just hyping up the wrong shit. We go again. He's throwing headshots hard as he can, body shots, leg kicks. And I'm just letting him, like, get out the whatever, the confidence, aggression. I'm, like, blocking it. I'm like, whatever, do what you got to do. And finally, one of my buddies, Tyler's there, and he's in my corner in all my fights now. And he's getting pissed. And he goes, will you just sit him down with the body shot? And I'm like, you know what? That's, like, the least harmful way I can stop this. So I slip, and I rip a body shot. Instantly, he folds, sits down. And I was mad because I don't like doing that. So I took my gloves off, and I was like, this is why I said we need to stop. This is stupid that I had to drop you for you to stop. And I threw my gloves, and I yelled at everybody. I go, this is your fault for feeding his ego. And I packed my stuff. I showered, and I left, and I was mad. And my buddy Tyler calls me laughing, and he's like, dude, I know you're mad, but that had to happen. I go, I know it had to happen, but it also didn't. We could have just ended where it was. Like, he got the better of me and he pushed me on my ass. I laughed it off. It is what it is. And then the ego came in. And, like, you know, I don't like hurting people, and I dropped him with a body shot and still felt bad. Some other people, even world-class guys, would have kicked your head off.
That is an absolute fact. I'm very much like you. Like, I don't like hurting people. That's probably one of the reasons I, like, didn't really, like, train to do it professionally. Yeah. And I realized that in sparring, like, I'd have to eat a couple of really solid shots to be like, all right, I'll go with you. Like, we'll play around. And even then, like, if I'd come through, or like somebody would step into a cross, I'd be like, ah, shit. Yep. I'd feel really bad, you know?
Still like that. I'm horrible at hard sparring. The guys at AKA know it. They think it's hysterical. They try and get me to spar hard, and I get my ass kicked, and they're like, dude, you're so bad at sparring. I'm like, I'm horrible. I'm so bad at it.
You're like, it's not that I'm bad at sparring. It's just that, like, this guy's willing to hurt me, and I'm not really so willing to hurt him.
Yeah. And I've said to people, I go, I'm not saying, like, oh, if I fought back, I'd fuck you up. But, like, I can't do it. Like, in the gym, I can't do it. I've had guys that I know are trying to hurt me, and I'll set them up. Like, I lined up a kid once for a question mark kick, and I got him to bite on it. He had his hands down here, and I was like, I'm going to boot this kid in the head so hard. And then my foot got to, like, here, and I just stopped. I'm like, I can't do it. I can't
your toe flicks him in the face, and you're like, all right, I could have done that.
Yeah. And some guys don't catch the hint, whatever, but, like, me, like, there's just something in me. I'm like, I can't do it.
Yeah. Yep. I 100% understand that. I've always had a problem, like, getting to that point where, like, you know what? Yeah. Like, I don't mind if I knock this guy down. Like, I always feel bad no matter who it is that I'm sparring. If I knock you down, I'm literally like, oh crap. Oh shit. I'm sorry. Let me help you up.
Yeah. I feel so bad.
Yeah. And then for the rest of sparring, I'm basically like you said in your story, like, I'm blocking, I'm swaying, I'm moving, I'm defending. I'm letting you open up because, like, I feel bad that I knocked you down.
Yeah.
So I definitely understand that. Okay. So kind of jumping back a little bit, backtracking to the beginning, what got you into mixed martial arts? Like, what made you so passionate about the sport?
So it was a couple of things. So I was a heavier set kid when I was younger, and I got picked on a lot, and it kind of got to the point where the teachers didn't do anything. And this started in elementary school. From 3rd grade, I was getting picked on for being fat. And, you know, I would come home crying sometimes, and my dad made trips down to the school and was flipping out with the principal, and they would always say the same thing. Well, it's he said versus he said. We've got no proof. And my dad used to always say, why would my kid come home crying if he's making something up? That makes no sense. And eventually it got to the point where my dad was like, if these kids mess with you, you tell a teacher. The teacher doesn't do anything. You handle it yourself. So I started getting picked on, and I'd say, all right, at recess or after school or before school. Like, yeah, I'm fat. Let's see if you can do something to the fat kid. So I started getting into a lot of fights growing up. I got into a few fights in like elementary school. I got into a lot of fights in middle school. I only got into like 2 or 3 in high school, but all the same thing. Like kids trying to talk smack because I was short and fat, and I was just like, no, you're right. I was like, let's go see if you can beat up the fat kid. Let's go. I had no idea how to fight. I just closed my eyes and throw as hard as I could. But I was fat, so I was throwing a lot of weight. And then when I was in the middle of all that, like getting into fights, I was at a friend's house when I was younger, and I saw Anderson Silva versus Forrest Griffin. His dad was watching it, and I just thought it looked like a scene out of a movie. I didn't know what UFC or MMA was, and I think we were playing like Pokemon on our Game Boys. And we were just like in the living room, and I looked up, and I was like, huh. And, you know, Anderson's got his hands down doing this, and then he like knocks him out with a jab, and I was like, what am I watching? What just happened? And his dad's like,
you were watching anime.
Yeah. And his dad was like, this is UFC. This is the real stuff. Da 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 da. So I started watching it. And I remember the first time I came home to like tell my dad, I was like, they have a pay-per-view. It's like $40. You got to order it. And he's like, what is it? And I'm trying to explain it to him. He's like, oh, so boxing? And I'm like, yeah, but they wrestle. And he's like, so like WWE? And I'm like, no, just order it. You'll love it. And he watched one with me, and he was like, how the hell did you find this?
That's amazing. But was he a fan?
He was a fan. He didn't understand that, like, in the back of my head, I was like, I want to do this. But he was a fan. And then when I graduated high school, I got into a few colleges that I wanted to wrestle at. And we didn't really have money. And, you know, my dad's giving me the whole spiel, like, we'll make it work. We'll make it work. And I'm like, we could, but I'd be in a lot of debt. I'm going to go start fighting. And he was like, are you crazy? And I was like, yes. And so I actually didn't take my SATs while I was in high school. I got accepted to a college, and they were like, all right, you need to do your SATs, and then we can take you in. And I was like, all right, cool. So I signed up for the SATs because my dad was like, just keep doing everything, and you can train and fight. So I signed up for the SATs, and it was over the summer, and it was like at the end of August or middle of August. It was the same day as my fight, and it was my first amateur fight. So I like told my dad was like, when is it? I was like, oh, it's like August 20th. And like saying it's the week after. And then I went to the fight, and before I walked out, my phone's blowing up. Like my friends, oh, where are you? Like you missed your test. I'm like, I'm in Plymouth. I'm about to get into a fight. And they're like, what?
You're like, don't worry, it's sanctioned.
Yeah, I was like, it's my MMA fight, and they're like, you're actually doing that?
Oh my god, was that your first amateur fight or your first pro fight?
First amateur fight.
Oh my god, man.
And then it was funny because it wasn't until a couple months later my dad was like, did you ever get your SAT scores? I'm like, no, I didn't. I was like, that's so crazy. And then he was like, he's like, you got to look into that. And I was like, yeah. And then he forgot for a couple more months, and then finally he was like, what the fuck is going on? And I go, all right, so I got to pay you back for the SATs because I skipped them.
Oh my god.
He was not happy.
I can't imagine. Yeah, I could definitely imagine. That's a great story, dude. Well, I mean, that's definitely a great way to get into mixed martial arts. Anderson Silva versus Forrest Griffin. I mean, that's like a timeless fight. When I think that's one of those fights where, like, if you want to get a friend into mixed martial arts, you're like, I got something to show you. Let me show you this.
Yeah, you ever seen The Matrix? Here's real life. Yeah,
you ever seen The Matrix? This is the inspiration for it. This guy. Seriously, like that I remember watching that fight for the first time and being like, this guy's something. Like, this guy's special. And like, I remember seeing Silva before then. Was it Rich Franklin, the first Rich Franklin fight, when Rich Franklin's nose was flat, and I was just like, and before then, even after then, I was a Rich Franklin fan, so I was like, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah,
like, this guy's insane.
Yeah,
he walked into this, like, he walked into the UFC like, all right, I'm here to take over. And that's what he did.
I was like, that's when YouTube started getting big. I was all over YouTube, like Anderson Silva highlights. I started learned about Pride. I saw his fights with Chris Lieben and Rich Franklin. I was like, this dude is like a superhero.
Yeah. Literally. To mixed martial arts, he is a superhero, I think. Speaking of superheroes, I know you're super into anime. So I think that might be the answer to the question. But outside of mixed martial arts, what are your biggest like hobbies or interests?
Watching anime and working out, and playing video games. That's really all I do. Um, you know, it's just hard to squeeze so much in while having such a strict regimen. I usually make time on the weekends with me and my girlfriend to go out or to go hang with our friends. But like throughout the week, if I'm not training or working or doing like a private lesson or something, I'm either just trying to sit back and relax and watch anime, or I'm playing video games. And video games are getting more and more competitive, so I'm like leaning more towards anime because like it's hard to just play an online game and have fun nowadays. Like you have to be like a fight. Like you have to be in the zone. You gotta like warm up. You gotta be mentally prepared to just go through it. And some days I just want to like not. So I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'll just go watch some anime.
I definitely get it. Yeah. So anime is definitely, it seems like one of the biggest things that you enjoy. What are, not even like right now, just all time top 3 animes?
So my all-time favorite is like the most basic answer. It's Dragon Ball Z.
Dragon Ball Z.
I love Dragon Ball Z, but people that are like deep into anime are always like, oh, of course it is. It's like, yeah, dude, that's the first one I ever read.
Yeah, when you say Dragon Ball Z to like an anime fan, they're like, oh, yeah. But do you watch anime?
Yeah. But like I tell them, I'm like, listen, I went through that grind. I remember when I was younger, like in elementary school, I watched Dragon Ball on wherever I was watching it. And then I read it. I found it at the library when I was in like 4th or 5th grade. And then I remember I used to have, like, my parents bought me the VHS. It was on Toonami super late, like 11 o'clock at night. And then, like, you couldn't just, like, nowadays you've got Funimation, Crunchyroll, all these websites. Like,
you can watch it anywhere now.
Yeah. And, like, I was watching Yu Yu Hakusho. That's my number 2. And if you missed an episode, forget it. You just got to catch the catch up on the next episode. You're screwed.
Yeah.
And so
there was no YouTube back then, or like just looking it up online, or like on Crunchyroll or any of the apps nowadays. Like people have it so easy compared to how we did when we were watching anime as kids.
They have it so good. So the top 3 I would probably say are Dragon Ball Z, Yu Yu Hakusho, and then Naruto. I've got like so many under the top 3 that always like interchange. Yeah. And it's always like just what I'm watching at the time. Like Attack on Titan's in there, Demon Slayer, Jujutsu Kaisen. Just a lot of like shonen animes, Black Clover, all that. I'm on Fire Force and Black Clover right now.
Okay.
They're friggin' awesome. But yeah, people don't get what that grind was like back in the day to be an anime fan.
Yeah, it was hard. It was very hard. Like you said, like I remember I missed an episode of Yu Yu Hakusho, and literally the next episode, like all you can do is watch the little like on the last episode of Yu Yu Hakusho. And you're like, okay, all right, wait, he did what? But what else happened? All right, I guess I'm in.
Yeah, and like I tell people all the time, it's always like I try to not be petty, but like how it's the cool thing to like anime now. Like that was one of the things I got picked on for when I was younger.
I was going to say, when I was a fat kid in elementary school, I got beat up for like an anime. They're like, oh, look at this guy. He's a nerd.
I remember
I got books. Like now people read comic books and it's like, oh, you read comic books? That's so cool.
Yep.
I'm like, how?
Yeah. Like I remember I had a group of friends. There's only like 3 or 4 of us, and we would always have our Game Boys on us at all times. We'd trade Pokemon with each other, battle each other with the little link cables. And like
I remember those.
We would get made fun of for like bringing our Game Boys to school. I'd be wearing like a Dragon Ball Z shirt. Like I'd fight people over this, like just because they wouldn't leave me alone. And now I see like so and so like has 7 million followers because they talk about Dragon Ball Z, and it's not like a teenager that just got into it. It's like a guy like 2 years older than me, and I'm like,
yeah, it's like a grown man.
Yeah. I'm like, dude, I fought people for wearing that same shirt, and you just started watching anime during COVID.
Yeah. Or like such and such sells original Pokemon card for X amount of dollars. And you're like, my mom sold those at a garage sale. Like, what the hell?
Yeah. Money that people make on cards now. And I'm like, I had like 8 of those, 5 of these. I'm like, and my mom got rid of them.
It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. I used to have so many like comic book action figures and like Pokemon cards. And every time I read online, like this action figure sold for this many $1 million. I'm like, my mom sold that for 75 cents at a garage sale in South Louisiana. I hope that kid made a lot of money on it.
Yeah. Some lady's got her kids' toys in the garage going, I bought this for $1.50.
Yeah. She's like, we're going to be rich. Best dollar I ever spent.
Terrible.
All right. So other hobby is video games. What video games are you playing right now?
So right now, I took a little break from Call of Duty. I'm super excited for Modern Warfare 2. And then like Fortnite, I'm trying to get into. I want to get into Cyberpunk. I just downloaded it because I watched that anime on Netflix. If you haven't, fantastic.
So good.
Had me in my feels and everything.
Oh,
My girl comes home. I'm like sobbing. I'm like, you don't get it. I got my girl.
That's better than mine. Like my girl, every time she happened to walk into the room, it happened to be during one of the nudity scenes, and she's like, "Are you watching your anime porn again?" And I'm like, "Come on, babe, grow up. It's called hentai."
I got my girl into. I got her into anime for a bit, and like it was so funny because my girl's very good about like she wants to get into things that I like so we can spend time together. And I got her into anime, and there was like I tried almost everything, and there was just like this one's too long or this story didn't catch her, and she was like, what about that one with the ninjas? And I'm like, Naruto? I go, that's kind of long. I was like, that's a long one, and we started watching it and she loved it. I couldn't believe it. The first anime that
I love it.
The first one she ever watched was Naruto and then Shippuden, and I couldn't believe it. I'm like, you just watched like 1,000 episodes. Like,
wait, did she actually finish all of Shippuden?
All of it.
Oh,
all
dude. Of it. So
and
that's the first anime I got Mary into was Naruto. We finished all of Naruto. We haven't finished Shippuden yet. We kind of fell off because we've like gotten sucked into all the Disney Plus stuff and all that stuff. But that's next. So I love that that's the first one you got her into. Love it.
She finished all of it, and it's so funny because like people start talking about anime, and she's like, I really only know like Naruto, and they'll ask her questions like, oh, what did you think about this and this? She's like, oh, that was sad, but like then she goes like in depth on something that like no normal like regular person would know, and everybody's like, oh, you like really watching it? She's like, yes. Like she rewatches it, like loves it, and it's just like how I am with Dragon Ball Z. She's like right there with Naruto.
I love it, and that says a lot about that being like the first anime that got you guys into anime, right? Like that's the first one for her. DBZ was the first one for you. Makes sense. You always go back to your first.
But I got her watching some animes and like the tragedies and some of the deaths, and she like gets emotional. She's like, why am I getting so emotional? I go, because it's heartbreaking.
Yes, because it's sad. It's meant to make you feel emotional.
Yeah, but it's just like so funny because like she never made fun of me for like an anime, but she like was never big on it, and now she's in it and she like sees characters die and she's like upset and she's like, I can't believe I'm so heartbroken.
It's amazing to see that kind of come full circle, right? Especially because I'm sure like originally she's like, babe, I don't know if that's for me. I don't know if that's gonna be my cup of tea. And then she's all sobbing next to you, and you're like, "What's the matter, babe?"
Have you ever seen a Kami ga Kill?
No.
That's a good one. That's a real good one. That one will put you in your feels. She actually stopped watching it because her favorite character died. And I'd bring it up because she'd always be like, "What shows do we have to watch?" And I'd be like, "Oh, we've got this and a Kami ga Kill." And she's like, "Nope, don't even bring it up. I'm not finishing it."
Oh man! So I'm not going to ask who her favorite character is, just in case I start watching it.
She gets so heartbroken. She's like, I can't. She goes, after they died, no, I don't even want to watch it. And I'm like, I get it.
Oh man, yeah, that's tough. That's tough. I mean, the same thing happens to me with like it happened to me with The Walking Dead. Like I stopped watching after Glenn died. I couldn't do it.
I did too. And you know what was funny is when I watched that show. Never. I had a friend that said it. They were like, if they ever kill off Glenn, I'm done. And I used to laugh. I used to laugh. I'd be like, whatever, dude. And then they killed off Glenn, and I didn't even mean to. I just never watched it again.
Yeah. I swear to God, like if you asked me the season before, like who's your favorite character? Like if they kill off this character, you stop watching. Yep. I probably wouldn't even put Glenn in my top 3.
Exactly.
And that's nothing against Glenn. Like he's a great character. But after that death scene, I remember looking at my roommate at the time, Shannon, I'm like, I think I'm done, dude.
I did that. We were so big on it. Same thing that he gets hit with that bat and they show it. And I'm like,
it was so gruesome.
And I was just like, dude, I was like, even Glenn's not safe. Like, what the hell am I watching for?
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, I mean, if we watch another season, we're just going to watch all the rest of these guys die. Like, I think I'm done. Yeah. I'm checking out.
Exactly.
I love it. All right, so I've already asked a lot of the questions that I had. Let's see here. Oh, how would your training partners describe you?
Annoying. I do a lot of unorthodox stuff, whether it's wrestling or striking or grappling. I do a lot of weird stuff, and I find stuff that works for me, and I make it work against newer guys and high level guys. And there's obviously still a lot of stuff I have to improve on, but the common consensus is I do a lot of annoying stuff. Being a special position, and people be like, "Why did that work?" And I'll be like, "Don't worry about it." Like when I teach a striking class or do a private lesson, people, the first thing they always ask me, "Oh, how do you like so and so with your hands down?" I go, "No, stop." I go, "I will never teach you how to strike like I do, because textbook, everything I do is wrong. But I do it based off the basics that I know. So I'll teach you the basics, and if you sway towards my style, then we'll work on it. But right now we get on basics, and then we'll see where your style takes you."
I love that. I absolutely love that. And that's what makes you a great martial artist, right? You don't have the same exact style as everybody else. You have your own style that you've developed using the basics. Like,
yes.
Like translating it to music, like a good instrument teacher will tell you, like, I'm not going to teach you how to play the Mission Impossible theme, or I'm not going to teach you how to play this song by Metallica. I'm going to teach you chords. And then after I teach you chords, then you can play whatever the heck you want to play. Like you're going to be making your own music. That's essentially what you did.
Yeah, I was joking with one of my buddies because, like, I still do it now, but even coming up in the sport, like, I did take pieces from my favorite fighters. Like, I took things from Anderson Silva and the Diaz brothers and Stephen Thompson and Habib and all them. But it's like I manipulated certain parts of it, and I kept one picture perfect, the exact same how they do it, but it all blends together to be my own style. And we were talking about Naruto a couple weeks ago, me and my buddy, and I made a joke. I was like, I'm like Kakashi. I'm the copycat ninja. I was like, if it works for you, I'm going to make it work for me.
And if it works on me, it'll only work one time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I love it, dude. I freaking love it. So I know you got the Naruto skins on Fortnite then, right?
Yes, 100%. And the Dragon Ball Z skin.
I was going to say, I know you got the Dragon Ball Z ones too.
Have to.
You have to. So, okay. Is Kakashi the number one character in Naruto for you?
No, I would say it's Naruto and then Jiraiya.
Naruto and then Jiraiya. I'm a big Rock Lee guy.
Rock Lee is up there too. He's right behind Kakashi.
I love Rock Lee. I'd probably say like Rock Lee, Kakashi, and Naruto, top 3.
Makes sense. I dig it.
And then Dragon Ball Z, favorite character.
Gohan, Goku, Vegeta.
Okay. Same top 3, just different order. Vegeta, Gohan, Goku.
Yep. I love them. I hate when the DBZ fandom like destroys each other because they have difference in opinion. I was like, Gohan's my favorite. That's it. I don't care what facts you have. He's my favorite. Yeah, like I don't care if you like Piccolo. I don't care if Chi-Chi's your favorite. Like if Chi-Chi's your favorite, you probably have a reason that Chi-Chi's your favorite, and that's okay. Yeah. Like, it's cool to not agree with me. I don't care.
Yeah, it's fine. I love it, man. Awesome. Well, I will let you go. I don't want to take up all of your night, but I highly appreciate you coming on the show. Definitely appreciate you being a part of it, and would love to have you back on anytime. Before you go, I know you don't have any fights actually lined up yet, right?
Nothing's lined up yet. We're running into that problem of, guys saying yes and then disappearing. We were supposed to, I was hoping this week to announce a fight for the end of November. But now, the guy that said yes to me is fighting in the main event for another promotion. So it is what it is.
So if that's the case, then okay, real quick, 2 more questions before I let you go. First things first. How's your dad? Is your dad doing better?
I actually picked him up this morning. He's doing good. They just had to, I forget what, one of the arteries they had to basically like clean out, and then they gave him a bunch of medicines. They had him for like 3 days. They had him Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Took him home today, and he's just got to take it easy for the next couple months. Awesome. Old school stubborn Italian guy. So I'm like, listen, you have to do the one thing you hate the most, which is nothing.
Yeah, relax. Trust me, I get it. I have an old Cajun mom with like 2 broken ribs and a torn rotator cuff, and she's like, I need to rebuild the fence and tear out all the floors and replace the floors. And I'm like, you need to do nothing. You need to lay down. Yeah, you need to relax. So yeah, no, stay on him. Make sure he does absolutely nothing. I know that's easier said than done. And since obviously nobody wants to fight you right now in the current promotion you're in, let's play pseudo matchmaker. Let's say you get to jump on that card coming up, the Boston UFC card. Who's your dream match? Who are we fighting?
So if it's looking for a fight, I don't know, because that's kind of like the local promotions. That's like outside the UFC. If a UFC Boston showed up, give me Patty. Give me Patty Pimblett.
That's what I was looking for. I knew that'd be the answer.
You can have all the Irishmen that like just associate with Europe. You can just have them go get drunk to support Patty, and then you can have all the Italians from the North End and all my friends that actually know about MMA come support me, and then we can get it on in the co-main event because Calvin Cater or Rob Font's got to be the main event, and then we can get it on. I can smoke that fool, or we can we can figure it out because I'm gonna smoke that dude and I'm gonna take all that hype.
Absolutely. And I 100% think that you would be the worst matchup for that kid. So you heard it here first. Dana White, Sean Shelby, UFC, everybody on MMA Twitter. Let's make this trend and let's get this kid on the next UFC Boston card. And if the UFC doesn't want to come to Boston, JoJo will come to them. He'll smash that guy anywhere.
Hey, UFC Orlando is only a 3-hour flight from me. So if they need me last minute, I'll be ready.
Hey, UFC Orlando, right around the corner. Let's go. Your boy's ready.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Thanks again, Joe. Have a great night, and I'm sure we'll see you on the show again in the near future.
You too. I appreciate you taking the time. Have a good one.
Absolutely, man. You do the same. Thanks so much.
See ya.